Writing books is probably one of my favorite things to do. So if you ask me if I like to read more or write more, it kind of go hand in hand. But in my world, right, things is a little different. So for me, I believe that I'm a pre-birth avatar. So I believe that I had a choice in this life, okay? And I had a choice in selecting this life, and ultimately, um, I'm pretty glad about where things are, right? And so, as a writing channel, as a channel for authors, something I think is just one of the neatest things ever is that you get to be you. You get to be whoever you want to be, and then you can be more than that person. Because part of the joy is in writing is you're creating a whole bunch of people, and those people are really kind of you. You might go, well, no, I create some really weird people and some really messed up things, but you're creating these things. So as a pre-birth avatar, I have this firm belief that when I'm writing my book, I'm writing back to source. And so I'm glad when people like the books we put out, when the content makes sense, and that's wonderful. I think it's great. But when I'm writing, I feel like one, the information I'm getting, it's not always the thoughts that are in my brain. Anybody else have that feeling when you're typing things out, but you didn't even know it was in there? Okay? So I feel like I'm getting information from one side of things, with consciousness, if you will. That's how I refer to it. And you got this over here, and this over here is source. So I'm writing information, I'm not even sure where it's coming from all the time. And I feel like so many people say that you should write to your target audience. But I don't know if I write to a target audience. If you ask me who my target audience is, I'm going to tell you I don't know. I really can't tell you. I don't know what some of these folks even do. But one thing writing does, it allows you to express yourself in ways you couldn't before. You're creating this other world. So just think about that for a minute. You get into writing this book, and you close your eyes for a certain amount of time, because that's what you got to do to write a book. You got to close your eyes, you got to make it happen, you got to really bog down in your lane and make things happen. But let's say you do that for a year, okay? And you got a book, or at least a manuscript that's at least way further than it was a year ago. And you realize that your world was writing, or is writing, and you figure out that you're literally creating your reality. Because you're the author, you're the novelist, you're writing the story, you're creating the story. These are things that you're doing. So when I say that I believe I'm a pre-birth avatar, and that means that I believe that there was a blueprint that I was given, and I agreed to. I said, here, these are what your abilities are, and then they veil you up, and here you are. Okay? You might go, well, how the hell does that involve writing? Well, it involves it heavily. Because I believe that the life I chose was to do exactly this right here. Even all the way down to recording this video, it's part of my writing journey. This is part of me giving back to a culture of creators, to a culture of authors, to a culture of novelists. It's my form of networking. My goal with this channel is to be able to create content that's engaging, and I'm a naturally boring person, so that's not naturally easy for me. So I'm going to need some nurturing from that. But I don't want to be on social media, so I want to help as many people as I can without being involved in all the politics. When you sit down to write your book, you're literally going to write your story, and then you're going to write the story that you want to write. And this may be the first time in your life where you get to decide what happens. This is your book. You get to decide literally what happens through the course of the writing. You get to decide what happens when you're done with the writing. You get to decide who you give it to before you publish it. And there's a lot, you're in control of this. And this might be the first time in your life that you were in control of something that somebody else didn't have a say so. That can be a little bit intimidating because there's times like right now where I'm sitting here and I'm supposed to be reading, but reading something's a little different. You can't, man, those guys that just sit there and they read and all they do is read all day and they never put the book down once to absorb the content. I can't do that. I love putting the book down, and here I am thinking about the book, and then here I am wondering how I can share with other people the joys of reading and writing. The biggest part of this video is that sometimes as a writer, you're doing nothing, or you're doing what looks like you're doing nothing. And I'm sitting here and I'm racking my brains writing this next book. And you got to pull this information, you got to pull from different sources, you got to do these different things. And sometimes all that adds up to is this right here. Your subconscious is literally percolating on a whole bunch of information that's trying to make into data. And so one of the things that you want to do as an author is you want to really take a step back for a moment sometimes and go, hey, are you really sitting there doing nothing, or are you being too hard on yourself? Not all books that are written are meant to just sit down and go through in one session. Sometimes there's books that you just got to sit on for a little while. And as an author, sometimes you got books that you're just going to have to sit on for a little while. Right now, I'm sitting here for a while. What else am I going to do? I mean, I got some ideas. I got some things to write down. But right now, it's okay for you as an author to not do the things that you were doing in a 9 to 5. Where you clocked in, you stayed productive, and production machines went down, you stayed sleeping, and your broom handles gone, whatever you need to do, you were staying busy constantly. As an author, busy looks different. Busy might look like you just kind of standing around pacing for a while doing nothing. It might look like you just staring at a blank wall hoping for inspiration because, well, yeah, I mean, you get inspiration from anywhere you can look. Inspiration can look like, for an author, can look like going to get some new life experiences that you ain't had yet. And you might not have that idea until you sit there with no thoughts for a good while, trying to figure out what you're supposed to be thinking about. Look, there's a whole lot of industries where people can be really hard on you for a whole lot of reasons, and you can be expected to know a whole bunch of stuff before you jump into the scenario. Although you're writing your book, one, you're not alone. Two, you're the creator. So if you're sitting there doing nothing and you're okay with it, keep doing it. How many people you know that had shower thoughts? And they got out of the shower and they got this great idea. They weren't thinking about it though. They might just have been taking a shower and they finally got to relax and they finally stepped away and something, boom, clicks like a light bulb. Well, that's what you're doing as an author. Sometimes you're taking this downtime and you're using it as the resource that it is. You need some downtime, so you take some downtime. And you do that as much as you need to do, because as an author, remember that when you do make it to the bestseller list and you start getting interviewed, you're going to need this stuff. You think you're the only author that sits there with something called writer's block? And it's not even writer's block. It's just you sitting there processing information in your subconscious that ain't made it quite to your consciousness yet. Keep this in mind. When you're writing your book, sometimes the best time to write is when everyone else goes to sleep, when nothing else is happening, nothing else is going around you, you're not distracted. So when your body does the same, your brain kind of goes into this little storage space. And you're not doing anything but you're not doing something, appreciate those small moments. Appreciate those moments. That way you can laugh back at them later and go, you know, man, I don't know how much time I've spent and invested sitting there thinking and doing nothing. And then you get this gold nugget that goes in the book, and you had no idea where it came from, but you gave yourself just a little bit of time, just kind of whoosah. Give yourself some time to not think. So what can you do with time when you're not thinking? You're coming up with ideas inside of you by not thinking. Eckhart Tolle talks about this. Bruce Lipton talks about this. There's so many people that talk about this. Learn how to relax as an author. You don't have to be writing and typing constantly. The research, eventually it's got to come to an end. Eventually you're going to have to interview somebody that you've been researching. Eventually these things is going to happen. They're going to happen in their own time. You've got to relax while you're writing your book. Let's relax during these certain scenes and aspects. But you don't want to be writing about some psychological thriller scene event and actually experiencing it yourself. Right? You want to relax while you're writing it and take your reader on a ride. It's a thriller. You don't want to be thrilled the whole year you're writing the book. You want to keep up and you want to be excited, and you don't know what's coming next because you're an author, right? You shouldn't know the end of the book. You shouldn't even know most of the story. But take time to do a little bit less sometimes and just see what you come up with. You never know, you might just surprise yourself with a gold nugget. Everybody's got something. Every author's got some advice. Everyone's got something to say, and they should. And you should heed a lot. Heed much of that, most likely. You also need to learn how to relax. As an author, if you don't relax, you're not going to be producing the best content you can for the audience that's going to start depending on you and relying on you for the characters that you develop. This is probably more for fiction writers than it is for anything. You go into your own world, and that world is nothing like the other parts of the world, because it can't be, because you've got to go 100% into a different realm of reality, which means you're creating a different reality. How many authors currently, right, they get real deep in their writing? Days, weeks, literally months go by. And you come back from writing, you're like, whew, wow, right? There's a lot. It's kind of like being in a book all day, right? And the day just passes. You don't have to be stressed out about being a writer. You're going to have expectations along the way from others, and you're going to have expectations from yourself along the way. Writing shouldn't be a stressful thing. It should be something you should look forward to. Just like reading. When people was younger, when you're not taught to read quite the right way and you're not taught that it can be fun, there's adults today that don't want to read, that don't enjoy reading, that would rather you read something to them. You're allowed to relax and be a writer. There's nothing stopping you from relaxing while you're doing what you do best. As a matter of fact, to do what you do best, maybe it is time to slow down. Maybe you're accelerating, you're fully throttled in what you're doing. You might be missing some things. Maybe it's time to sit back, chill, hang out, relax.